Y'all, we're back. This is Wake Surfology, episode 10. I'm Jake Breedlove, and this is my co-host, Dylan Ayala. We're sorry that we haven't been here for a minute, but...
No, you're good. Yeah, you just went on a trip to Utah, right? So we've been our schedules haven't been lining up exactly.
Yeah, we've been all over the place. I went to a comp, and I also went to Utah for a little bit to help out with the dealer event and so long covers. So that was really fun, getting to get some people out to demo some boats, learn how to surf, get better at surfing, and just all around have a great time out there.
Yeah.
So that was really fun. But I missed surfing with you.
Yeah.
We missed
Yeah,
some
we
time.
didn't surf a whole lot the last month or so together at least. We've just been busy, like I said, but yeah, I'm excited to get back to it.
Well, we're getting back into it. These last couple days we have gotten out, and we've done pretty well, even though it's really busy and rough out there. The summer crowd is definitely hitting Lake Austin.
Yeah. Yeah, summer's flying by, dude. It's kind of sad. It's like halfway over already.
Yeah, the only thing there are a lot of things to enjoy about it, but
Yeah.
the water is so nice.
It's
and
so
like
warm,
with the air
dude.
temperature. It's like not too warm, but it's like
Yeah.
it's
Could you imagine if the water was that warm in the winter? How nice that would be. It'd feel like you're getting in a hot tub, dude.
It'd be steamy.
Yeah.
It'd be super cool. But we can only dream.
Yeah, for sure. But today we're going to be talking about competitions and kind of everything that goes into competitions, preparing for comps, how comps work. We haven't really talked too much about how competitions work. So today we're just going to talk about competitions and how they work.
Yeah, we've kind of brushed over, the fun at the event that you can have and different things like that. But like he said, we haven't really gone into it too much. We haven't really picked it apart and told you all the different things that you got to prepare for and what it looks like competing there and just all of that jazz. There's a lot of little details.
Yeah, a lot of people are interested and have questions about competitions. Like when I'm doing lessons or whatever it is, a lot of people have questions that are not answered out there and not easily findable. So it's nice that we're going to be able to talk about that today.
And there's even questions that y'all might hear us answer and think, oh, what? That's easy. That's common sense. You should know that. But there are still a handful of questions that people ask that we get asked all the time. And, we may still be surprised that people have those questions, but they're very valid and people need those questions answered. So there are no dumb questions.
Yeah, true. All right, well, let's get into it.
Well, the first thing that we want to start talking about is kind of like preparation for a competition. We'll tell you a little more after this, what goes into it and what you have to prepare for exactly. But you don't necessarily need to know that yet. So
yeah.
First thing, what are some ways to get ready for a competition, preparing yourself mentally and physically? There are a lot of different things. What's like one of the first things that you would go to do to get ready?
Yeah, so like preparing for a competition, first you're going to know the date of the competition that you're wanting to do. But from there, then I would like to have an idea of what tricks I would want to land for that competition, and what tricks I would have consistent by that date. So then it's just really breaking it down backwards and practicing those tricks that you're wanting to learn or wanting to land before the comp. Specifically, one thing that you and I try to do is our first run of the day, we try and do a competition run just to practice being freshly new. Because at a competition, you don't get a bunch of runs. You just get thrown in the water and you got to do your run. So,
yeah, a lot of people ask me when they're interested in competitions, they ask, do you get time to practice at the event, or do you get to ride the event boat or competition boat before you actually compete? And the answer is usually no.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have demos that you can sign up for, but you're not always guaranteed a spot, and they don't always do demos either.
Yeah.
So usually when you get to a competition, you don't have an opportunity to get behind the boat to get comfortable. You just have to go out there when it's time to compete, and you just have to do it right then and there.
Yeah, I think that's what makes competitions so fun too, is because, everybody's kind of equal. You don't really get practice before you kind of just got to go out there and do your run. And at first, when you first start competing, that's super scary and like super nerve wracking because you're traveling so far for the competition and you're putting so much into this competition for this one run.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what makes it cool and also kind of nerve wracking at the same time.
Yeah. But so when you're looking to a competition and you're trying to get ready, like how far out are you thinking about that or starting to actually prepare or practice for that?
Obviously, like we're preparing year round because we ride all the time. But like during winter, we're kind of preparing for the upcoming season. And then once the season hits, you're kind of breaking down the competitions that you want to go to. Um, but like at least maybe a month in advance, you're kind of just starting to figure out the runs that you would maybe want to do at the competition.
Mm-hmm.
What about you? How far out are you preparing?
Well, yeah, like you said, we practice all the time just so
Mm-hmm.
we can be ready at any moment in time for the most part. Um, but generally, like if I know I have a competition, maybe it's a month out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Throughout that month, I'll kind of plan to ride a certain amount of times during the week whenever I'm able to. And I mean, yeah, I'd say about a month out is when I start practicing a little bit for that competition specifically and stuff that I'm going to want to be able to do. But I think, too, you don't necessarily have to plan that far out sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, it also depends on how much you're riding or what level you're trying to compete at.
Yeah.
But, like, I think about, like, an amateur rider who can maybe do, like, bottom turn snap, floater, 360, air,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a couple other more advanced tricks. But I think about, maybe only going out 2 weeks before. If you can get a couple different days of riding in, a few different hours of riding in, I think, that's solid sometimes. You don't
Yeah.
always necessarily have to always have a ton of practice time.
Yeah.
Because I think visualizing too is like really important, like a really good thing you can do to prepare, especially if you can't get the time you're wanting in to practice.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so just kind of visualizing maybe what you want to land before, even if you can't get as much riding in, helps a
mhm.
lot too.
Yeah, and trying to, if you know the event that you're going to be at, or if you've been there before, or as best as you can try to imagine you're in the competition and
Yeah,
try to imagine yourself doing those tricks behind the boat at an event.
yeah,
Um, it's a psychological thing, but I think that helps me a lot, and it could definitely help other riders too.
So that's something that you've done before competitions. That's something that you do.
Yeah.
Like, is it that you sit down and like you have dedicated time to doing that, or is it more like you're just always thinking about it?
It's kind of relaxed.
Yeah,
Usually, if I don't have time to go surf, or if I'm in like a mode where I want to surf but I can't,
yeah,
I'll just kind of meditate for a second or
mm-hmm.
whatever and think about some of the tricks, or maybe I'll even kind of stand up in the
Yeah,
middle of the room and move a little bit and try to feel them a little more that way.
mm-hmm.
And then watching videos of yourself riding is also really good. Watching yourself doing tricks perfectly is good because you can watch that over and over and you can try your best to remember what that felt like. And then you can know, okay, that's all correct. I got to try to remember that. And then you can look at videos of yourself where you're falling on a trick or doing something wrong. And again, think back to what that might have felt like
Yeah,
and kind of make those connections without actually having to go out and surf.
yeah. That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, and that can be very helpful.
So after you've kind of prepared and you practice all that you have planned, what is kind of the next step? Like as you're coming up to the week of the competition, or maybe the next day you're flying out, what do you do from there?
Well, maybe not like the next day, or even sometimes a week out. Like maybe like a few weeks out, or like I said, like a month out. You want to know like obviously what tricks you want to do and stuff like that, but more importantly, I think you want to know like what board you're gonna ride,
Yeah,
like what gear you have. I mean, you need to have a life jacket and you need to have a board. So specifically with the board, you got to know, is it ready for competition? Do you feel comfortable riding that board, or have you been riding other boards? Um, but yeah, I think you need to ride what you've been riding on recently, what you're consistent with, and know how to do those tricks on. and then just make sure your board isn't broken or anything,
Yeah.
because you don't want to go into a competition with, gear that's not going to work for you.
Right. Yeah. So do you bring more than one board to a comp, or are you just bringing one?
I generally bring one board. It's a
Mhm.
really good idea to bring two boards if you can. It can be hard to package them up properly,
Yeah.
or safely, so they don't get damaged when you're traveling with more than one board. So you just have to be really careful doing that. But if anything happens to your board, it's a really, good option to have something else that's not broken.
Yeah.
Especially because I've seen riders, you know, they, I mean, boards can break during travel, and so one board could break and the other one could be fine or something.
Yeah.
Um, honestly, when it's on an airplane or in the airport, usually both break.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you get to the comp, you have another option to use. And riders break their boards at the comps a lot of times, or I've seen fins fall out of boards. So even having extra fins is a good idea too.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, usually I'll bring two boards. I'll just pack an extra one just in case something happens, like on the plane or even while I'm riding. Just have an extra board is nice to know that you have that.
hmm
Um, but yeah, I need to start bringing an extra set of fins because usually I only bring one.
I usually do as well, but it's I feel like I trust my fin boxes and
Yeah, yeah,
the way that my board was made and all that stuff. So I've never had a fin fall out on me before, but
yeah,
I've seen it happen. So
yeah. Sometimes the airlines will destroy your boards. Like I've had probably two or three just get absolutely destroyed, and I'm like, how did that even happen? Like one time, my board bag was like completely broken too. Like half of it was destroyed, and the board was like completely destroyed. It was bad.
yeah, so make sure you invest in some good board bags, or
Or
just
wrap
package
it.
them
Yeah,
up nicely. A lot of people use pool noodles on the edges. It's kind of tricky to put on, but that works really well.
yeah, yeah.
Wetsuits, life jackets. It's always
Hmm.
good to make sure your board is flat, like on the bottom of a board bag, though. You don't want to put life jackets and stuff underneath it,
Hmm.
like wherever it'll lay flat, because if you have something underneath it, if something's on top of it, it can really mess it up.
Yeah,
It's better it's flat.
yeah, for sure.
And then also too, along with your board and your fins, if you use wax, that's always a good thing to have more of, because your board can get hot at the comp, or you ride day one and then you wear all your wax out. You want to have more wax to throw on for day two.
Yeah.
Not everyone's gonna have wax at the comps. And then last but not least, I just thought of this.
Hmm.
For any reason that your board does get dinged up, you can order online just like some ding repair and always carry that with you. Like I have one where I just put a little bit of resin on the crack
Yeah.
where it got dinged and just stick it in the sun for like 5 to 10 minutes and it's good to go.
Nice.
So
Yeah. Okay, so now that you've kind of prepared for the comp, you practiced, you got all of your gear ready, and you arrive to the comp, like, how does the competition work?
um, well,
Different areas, I guess. There's a lot that goes into a competition.
there is a
But
lot that goes into it. One question that we get asked a lot is, do you bring your own boat to the competition?
yeah.
Do we?
No, we don't.
No, we don't do that.
Yeah, surprisingly, a lot of people have that question, though. Like on
Yeah,
lessons or whatever it is, they'll, like, just ask, do you bring your own boat? But, like, I mean, you bring your own board, but you don't bring your own boat.
yeah. You bring all your own gear except for the boat, and
Yeah.
I could see why people have that question, but after we've been doing this for so long, it's just funny to hear that question, because sometimes I think like, what would happen if every single rider brought
Oh,
their
yeah.
own boat?
It would make the competition so much longer, and it would be a mess. I mean, it is a good question though, because like even thinking about like horses, you have a
Oh
horse,
yeah,
but like
yeah,
people bring their horse to their competition and stuff like that. So it's a little different, but
yeah. I would compare a horse to like your board,
yeah, true.
and then maybe like your barn,
Yeah.
like your arena to your boat.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's like, do you bring your barn?
um, what were we talking about? Shoot.
How competitions work.
Okay, yeah. Um, so yeah, you don't bring your own boat. There's usually like one or two, sometimes three different boats, like an extra on hand in case one has issues. But there's usually a couple boats, and like each boat will be like that specific boat for each division.
Yeah.
Or I mean, like one boat will run for multiple divisions, but
Yeah.
whatever division you're in, all of the riders will compete on that boat. So you don't
Yeah.
have to worry about other riders having an advantage over the other for whatever reason.
Yeah. Yeah, so like there's different divisions, like amateur, semi-pro, pro, and say like amateur, semi-pro, and pro will all go like one after another for like say 3 hours or something, and that's gonna be a crew of judges as well
Yeah.
as a boat driver, and so like it just makes it equal, same amount of people on the boat, same judges on the boat,
Mm-hmm.
same driver, so everything or try to make at least the same, consistent, different people as well as like just making sure everything is the same as
Yeah.
much as possible.
Yeah, that way everything is as fair as it can be out there for all the different riders, and no one can get upset.
Yeah.
Even though sometimes people can still get upset, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But um, yeah, so you'll have like 3 judges on the boat, and there's also usually a scribe. The scribe writes down all of the tricks as one of the judges calls them out.
Mm-hmm.
Any combos, and then maybe any other notes that they want to write down if they can. And that way judges can just look back on it and compare tricks of different riders. I mean, sometimes it comes down to one trick
Yeah.
differentiating on who won.
Yeah.
So,
Judging is hard. It's really hard. And like you said, having a scribe is very helpful because you can look back on it because you're judging however many people in the division and a lot of things kind of blur together. I think something smart in the future to add would be like replays would be super cool to see because then you could just replay it right there and kind of have that to see.
yeah, I think that would be really cool. I actually thought about that at the last competition because some judges were, they're getting in a tough spot trying to score some pros, and
Did you get screwed?
no,
No, I'm
no.
kidding. I'm kidding.
I hope no one got screwed.
I'm
But,
kidding.
I think everything went well for the most part, but it's a really tough
It
time
is.
trying to, get scores right and make sure everyone is where, they should be based on their riding.
Yeah, especially for skim, they do so many tricks in a run.
Yeah.
Like they're constantly doing tricks the whole time.
It's like a whole combo down the whole
Yeah.
course.
Yeah, you
They're
fall on your
insane.
last trick, nothing counts. That sucks.
But yeah, be nice to your judges, respect them, respect their decisions, because it's not easy and they're doing their best. And I mean, I doubt or would hope not that I would hope they weren't trying to score you bad intentionally.
Yeah,
But
for
It's
sure.
probably not going to happen. Well, I guess we can move on to the next part. How are we scored by those judges?
Yeah.
What are they looking for?
So, like you get to a competition and you see out in the water 2 buoys,
Mm-hmm.
and those buoys are kind of the course. And so each way it's 45 seconds to a minute around there.
Yeah.
And each way you get 2 falls. So you can fall once, they'll pick you up on the boat, let you go again. But on your second fall, they won't pick you up again. So that's kind of like the course.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you get 2 falls each way.
Okay. And so we have the 2 falls. We go from buoy to buoy and back. Whenever we're like doing all of our tricks or like actually competing, like what do I need to do to like score points with the judges, or like is it like how many tricks I'm doing, or like what is it? What do I
Yeah,
do?
so the series that you and I compete in, they have like their own category of judging, and they're all kind of similar, but the one that we specifically compete in is drive. So
Yeah, with the
difficulty, risk, intensity, variety, and execution.
Yeah, and the risk category was recently added, so
Yeah.
that's still kind of getting explored, and people are still figuring that category out.
Yeah.
It's a cool one.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily like who does maybe the most tricks or who does like say if you landed like a 360, that doesn't mean that you're going to win the competition by any means. Like it's nice that it's judged in 5 different categories cuz somebody could I guess we need to break down the different categories first. So like difficulty, how would you explain difficulty?
So yeah, I would say your difficulty, it's basically like what tricks you're throwing or combos you're throwing. What is difficult basically. So like a snap is not going to be as difficult as
Mm-hmm.
like a 360 or an air,
Right.
and then same with like an air 180 compared to a big spin.
Right.
Um, what like no matter how big the trick is, like how intense the trick is, which we'll get more into that. Whatever trick you're doing, there are tricks that are more difficult than others,
Right.
or stances too,
Mm-hmm.
because you could be riding switch or backside. Um, so basically, you want to be throwing more difficult tricks, or you want to throw combos, which is more difficult than separating two tricks from some pumping or whatever.
Right. Yeah, and so from there drive so difficulty risk. Risk is basically like say you came out right at the start buoy and did a hard trick like a big spin or like a shove or something like that compared to a lot of people will warm up with maybe like a slash or like a bottom turn or
Mm-hmm.
an air or something like that. So kind of an easier trick. So it's a lot more risky to go straight out of the gate and do a big spin or
Yeah.
shove, something like that.
Yeah, and it's really cool to see people start off with really big tricks, but with the risk category, I mean, that's the whole point of it. It's risky. So it could go really well or it could go really bad.
Yeah, because if you fall in that first trick, you're already out one fall, and you haven't gotten any tricks.
Yeah, and you've only
Because
covered 20 feet of the course or
yeah,
whatever.
so you still have so much more course, and that's gonna make you play a lot more safe for the rest of your run.
Hmm.
So like just landing that first trick, really hard trick, is super risky because it could throw off your whole run if you don't land it.
Yeah, and then throughout the rest of your run, or like starting on the second pass, you can also start off with the big trick as well. Um, but I think doing other things like combos too
Mm-hmm.
also goes into that risk category because
Yeah.
it's more risky to do a combo of 3 tricks in a row as opposed to kind of spreading those tricks apart and taking your time with them.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
So then we have intensity. How would you
intensity.
explain intensity?
Intensity, it's a couple different things. The main thing that I think of is going big,
Mm-hmm.
getting fins out of the water um, for any of the tricks or all of the tricks. So, yeah, you want to go big. You don't want to do an air 3 where your board is like grazing the top of the wave. It's cooler or more intense to do an air 3 like a foot off the lip of the wave or something
Yeah.
like that. If you can do that, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, and then also too, it's like how fast you're doing some of your maneuvers and stuff. Like if you do them really slow and I don't know, too slow or whatever, it might be boring.
Yeah.
But if you're kind of moving quick, if you know what you're doing, um, like moving really quick or whipping the board hard or coming down hard on it, different things like that is really intense and cool to watch. So try to go big and make it exciting looking.
Yeah, so that'll boost your intensity. And then from there, variety. So there's a few different categories for like variety. I mean, you can do front side rotations, backside rotations, switch stance, switch heel side, switch toe side.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you rode like regular heel side and regular toe side. So there's a lot of different variety categories. So yeah, like front side rotations, front side shoves, backside shoves.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like what you included in your run, because some people will only ride toe side regular stance, and so they're not gonna score as well in variety because they only rode that one side.
Yeah. And also too, like you might only know how to do shoves for whatever reason, and if you're only doing a back shove, a front shove, I mean, you might be doing the different types of shoves, but if you're not doing any like air 3s
Yeah,
or if you're not just different types of maneuvers, like you might only do like airs in all of the different stances, but you're not throwing any shoves or big spins or anything else like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
You just got to mix it up and have a big variety of tricks out there.
yeah, yeah, and then from there, so variety and then execution. How would you explain execution?
Execution, it's showing control of your riding and the board when you're doing your tricks, and that can look like a different that can look a couple different ways. Like if I do a big air and my back foot slides up or something, and then I have to shift that foot back, then technically that could take away from my execution score, because I'm having to kind of reposition myself on the board.
Yeah.
Or let's say I do like a big spin, but I'm having to like slap the water,
Mm.
um,
Yeah.
and get really low and stuff like that. Then that wouldn't be, as high of scoring for execution.
Yeah.
They want to see you, stick the landing, not wobble or flail your arms or anything like that.
Yeah, so it's how you execute your tricks and maybe even how you execute your whole run too. Like
Yeah.
if you have a stand up pass or if you comboed stuff really nicely, just it's basically how you execute not only your tricks but also your whole run.
hmm And that's a big category, I think, because like a lot of people, like when they practice, I mean, people practice in different ways, and some people might be going for the bare minimum to just land these tricks and get going and get moving and to throw more tricks. So like that kind of person, they're going to be going for maybe difficulty and variety. Whereas someone else, if they're a little more cautious or they take their time, maybe they lack a little bit of intensity or something like that, but they'll probably have more control, higher execution
Right.
points. So different riders are going to score different ways based on their style and what they try to go for.
Yeah, and that's what's so cool about the drive and like the different categories of scoring because obviously different riders, like you said, are going to score better in different sections. Um, like, what would you say that you score really well in drive?
I usually score really well in my intensity,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm doing a lot of my tricks really big, um, and then I usually do somewhat well in execution,
Yeah.
because I do generally take my time. I'm not throwing a ton of combos and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like I go bigger, and I'm throwing less tricks than some other riders. So I generally lack in variety,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes difficulty.
Yeah.
Um, but I still sometimes, I mean, I still have some difficult tricks in there, so
Yeah,
it's
for
not
sure.
like my difficulty is hurting really bad. It's mainly just my variety. But yeah, for me, I'm really strong in my intensity,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm decent in execution and difficulty.
Yeah.
And then with the risk category is very new,
Mm-hmm.
but within these last couple comps, I'd say my risk has been pretty good.
Yeah, you said you
Um,
did a passion pop, right? First trick?
yeah, at the last Minnesota comp, I did a passion pop on my first pass for first trick, and then first trick on the second pass was an air three, and I
Yeah.
did those really well, I think.
Yeah, that's
So
tough too because those are really hard tricks. And like we were talking about earlier, you don't have any time to warm up. Like those
right.
are your first tricks. So you can see how like that risk factor can really affect the whole competition and how your run is played out.
hmm
So it's a cool new category.
Yeah, you only get the time of getting up and watching the wave form, and then you have to do a trick. Like
Yeah.
if you're trying to go high points on the risk. So yeah, like you said, you don't have any time to prepare for it. You just got to do it and
Yeah.
hope for the best.
Yeah, and it's also cool that I mean there's these different categories and there's going to be riders that score better in different areas and you can see how it kind of makes it an even playing field because if they just did it on difficulty, then there would be riders who don't have much style or they're not doing tricks very big, but they can land all the tricks. It just doesn't look good and they would be winning. So it's like there's different categories so that people that are better at different areas also have a chance to win too.
Yeah, because not every rider is going to be the same, and it's
Hmm.
really good to acknowledge and recognize the skills of different riders because everything that we all do behind the boat is really cool and it matters.
Yeah.
It's not like just because this rider um, isn't doing like a lot of difficult tricks doesn't mean they're a bad rider or anything. They
Yeah.
might just have a different kind of style, or they might just go for different different things when they're out riding or competing.
Yeah, that's very true. Okay, so you got the different categories, kind of how the competition works. What other things do you kind of have to look out for in a competition?
Um, well, yeah, you have your own riding to worry about, and then I think the next thing is just like the conditions at the competition.
Yeah.
Um, there are a handful of things that can kind of mess you up when you're out there. For one, try not to get psyched out. Try to get in a good mental headspace before you ride,
Mhm.
and then try to stay in that good mental headspace while you ride.
Yeah.
Just take pressure off yourself as best as possible. But when you get out there, there are some things that you're not really going to have control of, and that's one reason why it's good to try to be in a good headspace, so that whenever you go through those issues, um, they don't affect you as much. But some of those things are like weather conditions. It can be really windy out there. That's like a big issue.
Yeah,
Um,
wind is a big one.
Wind always gets me. And then boat chop, like or rollers from other boats,
Mhm.
that can be a big issue too, because you can be trying to like pump in for an air or just whatever trick you're trying to do, and it can just totally throw you off or just get you to miss pump or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of different things. I mean, and there's competitions that are like notorious for being bad conditions, like that are always windy or something always goes wrong. Um, but yeah, I mean, like wind affects so much, especially like when it kind of goes if the wind increases specifically for like one or two riders, like at the end or at the beginning. Like sometimes there's wind for just like 15 minutes and then it's gone.
Yeah,
S-
that's when you really got to be in a good headspace, because you might think, oh, well, this rider had a perfect,
Yeah,
they had a perfect run because they didn't have any wind or chop. That's not
yeah,
fair.
yeah.
I mean, ultimately, you just got to deal with what you have. But I mean, there are some times that you can, ask the judges for a rerun if
Mhm.
there are really bad rollers.
Yeah, and
Um,
like the other riders didn't have those same boat rollers or something.
yeah,
Mhm.
but if it's just wind or if it's just like natural chop,
Yeah.
stuff like that, you can't really call that at all
Yeah.
for a rerun. You just got to deal with it.
Yeah. And that's another thing that makes competition so fun is it's just it is what it is and like you get what you get. You travel all the way there and sometimes it's going to be windy, sometimes it's going to be choppy and you can only control what you can control, so.
Yeah, and that's why it's good to practice at home when it's a little windy or choppy.
Mhm.
Try some of your tricks in that and see what the wind does to you or the board. See if it
Yeah.
affects you. Because when you're out there, you got to be able to perform, and that's one aspect of being a competitive wake surfer is you got to handle some of the conditions that are thrown at you.
Right. Yeah.
And one thing that I forgot too is shallow spots in the water. A
Mhm.
lot of times, the boat can go over a spot that's only like 15 or 12 feet,
Yeah.
and the wave gets super small or it washes out or something, and you just gotta be aware of that right when it happens, and it's tough, but
It is.
it can catch you off guard like mid trick or something. But
Yeah, yeah, and like your first competitions, it's always hard because you're trying to think so much about what you're gonna do, and then like you also have to think about like the chop or the wind or the weight. You gotta adjust the wave and all these different things. It's so overwhelming your first few comps, and it's easy to get frustrated if you don't do well
hmm
in your first competitions. But if you come prepared as much as you can, that's what's gonna make it the most fun.
yeah, and I think like knowing that there could be like a potential possibility that there is wind or chop or a shallow spot, just going into the event knowing that could happen
Yeah,
will just relieve you more, if it possibly does,
yeah,
because
and
you don't want to go in completely caught off guard.
yeah. Like there's always expect that it's going to be bad conditions and then if there's good conditions, it's even better.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah, well, so that's kind of a just a brief summary of competitions. There's a lot that goes into them, but I think we touched on a lot of the main points, scoring,
hmm
preparing, how they work kind of. But yeah, competitions are super fun
Yeah,
and just so much you get to meet a lot of people and just a great time.
yeah, and like you said, there's a lot of other little things that we might not have touched on, but I think you just got to go to an event and see for yourself what it's about, what it's like, and put a little bit of that pressure on yourself to
Yeah.
perform and see what you can do under pressure, because it's pretty fun and it can be really rewarding, and we talk about these things because we want y'all to, learn from it and have a leg up for potentially doing this on your own. So we'll keep doing this kind of thing and answer
Yeah.
any questions that y'all might have about events and competing.
Yeah, and like think about when you land a trick at home and you're so pumped to land that trick, but then you land that trick in competition, that feeling is so much better.
Yeah, you hear people cheering on the boat or from shore, and I mean, the excitement is just unreal sometimes.
Yeah.
It is
Or if you
very
do
cool.
bad, it's like the opposite and it makes you want to work so much harder.
Or you never want to surf ever again. No.
Yeah, true. But yeah, competitions are fun. Fun episode. It was fun to talk about competitions.
Yeah, that'll be it for episode 10. We'll be rolling out some new stuff coming weeks, and we'll continue wake surfology forever.
All right,
So.
let's do it. All right, peace.
Peace.